What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Black Experience. Welcome back to another episode in Season 5. Wow, every time I say it, guys, I get more and more excited. For all of you who have supported me the past 2 years, this month marks a 2-year celebration of The Black Experience. Thank you so much for your support. And for those of you who've been with us for a week, a day, an hour, a month, however long it may be. If you're a new listener or viewer, welcome to The Black Experience and welcome to the journey that we are on. And we are on a mission to continue to grow and reach more and more people and voices and to put out amazing podcasts out there for you guys. Today, guys, I have a very special episode, as usual. Now, today's episode is going to be a bit different, an impromptu episode, where I'll be talking specifically about Black excellence in the field of STEM. Now, for those of you who may not know, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, I personally, for those of you who may know my story, studied manufacturing engineering and got my bachelor's this past June from Western Washington University. Shout out Western. Go Vikings. Now, getting engineering a degree was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done. It was long, it was brutal, but of course, nothing worthwhile usually comes easy. And having that mindset and having a problem-solving, solution-oriented mindset is one of the things that engineering crafted in me that has helped me get through it all. Now, STEM is not for everyone, obviously. Not everyone does it. But specifically, when it comes to the Black excellence in STEM, there have been 3 particular trailblazers that I'll be highlighting on this podcast that you may or may not have heard of. Now, I personally have only heard of one of them, and I learned about the other 2 recently. The first one we'll start with. His name is Dr. Benjamin Banneker. Now, if you Google Dr. Benjamin Banneker and you say, what is he most famous for or known for, most people find that he was famous for making his own wooden clock. Right? That's it. He built his own clock entirely out of wood in the 1700s, in the 18th century, by studying the mechanics of a clock, how it works and stuff. Born in 1731, Banneker was a self-educated mathematician. He was a self-educated mathematician, astronomer, almanac author. But one of the things that I uncovered that he was really famous for was he, as well as other men, was part of the many people that helped survey the land of Washington, D.C. Now, a Black man in the 18th century, how was he able to do such a thing? How was he able to have access to such a thing, as well as be a surveyor for the city, for one of the most famous cities, most important cities in the world today? Well, Banneker growing up always had a hunger for knowledge. He grew up with a hunger to know more, to understand how things work, right? As I mentioned, he was a free African American that was living in a slave state in the 18th century. And he had received a formal education during his youth. He maintained his property and farm as an adult and parlayed his intellectual gifts into national prestige. In fact, the more that you learn about Banneker's life and story kind of reflect the paradox of the early history of the U.S., which is that it is a land of freedom and opportunity, but with so much racial qualifiers that were insurmountable. In fact, there comes a point in Banneker's history where he even writes a letter to then President Thomas Jefferson talking about this paradox. And this showed that he was an early advocate for civil rights and racial equality. He appealed to Jefferson and his sense of justice, and he advocated for equality and the end of racial prejudice. He urged Jefferson to recognize the hypocrisy of fighting for liberty for all, while at the same time enslaving so many African Americans. This being in the Declaration of Independence, and it's part of its ideals, of course, but as well as the institution of slavery that was still going on in the U.S., which would not become illegal until 1865, right? In 1771, one of his neighbors, in fact, was a Quaker family. And one of the people that he got close with, his name was George Ellicott. He was a resident. On July 16th, 1790, then President George Washington signed the Residence Act into law. Now, the Residence Act, once that was signed, what that did was establish a new federal city to be constructed along the Potomac River, now known as Washington, D.C. Of course, Washington needed assistance on the project to survey it, to plan it, to see how the city would be as it is today, how it would become. And so one of George's cousin, Andrew Ellicott, was part of the team, and he was brought on as a practical engineer. On top of that, George would go on to invite Banneker to help them and to become a surveyor as well. Now imagine this, guys. At a time that is so mirrored with racism and slavery still being a legal institution in the U.S., and yet at the same time, we have someone like Banneker who was an anomaly, an early advocate who stood up to the president, to many presidents. So that is our first trailblazer. And of course, all this information I'll have in the description down below for all the articles for you guys to check out. The second trailblazer in Black excellence in STEM that we will be talking about today, and this is the one that I knew of before I had done this, is Dr. Mae Jemison. Born in 1956, Jemison has a rich educational history. She received her degrees in chemical engineering, in African American studies, and later went on to become a medical doctor and officer in the Peace Corps. Y'all, she's smart. No doubt about it. She is incredibly smart. She's incredibly gifted with education and a hard worker. But Jemison is most famous for being the very first African American woman to travel in space aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Now, it wasn't until 1983, after she was watching Sally Ride, that she decided to apply to the astronaut program at NASA. Right. After having Sally Ride, an American astronaut and physicist, being her inspiration to say, hey, you know what? If she can do it, I can do it too. That allowed her to apply to become an astronaut at NASA. And less than 10 years later, on September 12, 1992, on that very famous day, she went into orbit aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour as the very first African-American woman in space. Later the next year, in 1993, she had left NASA and continued to work for the benefit of others as an educator, entrepreneur, and author. A famous quote from Jemison as she's coming in from outer space in 1992 goes like this, quote, "Sometimes people want to tell you to act or to be a certain way. Sometimes people want to limit you because of their own imaginations." End quote. The reason I love that quote is because it allows people to realize that sometimes people want you to be in a certain box and not leave that box. Now, for those of you who may know it or may not know it, there's a story of the crabs in a box. And there's one crab that starts to come out of that box. And essentially, as he's trying to come out, all the other crabs, they pull him down, essentially. The gist of the story, what the story was trying to get at, is that despite one of the crabs wanting to explore and see something else and get out of that box that he is with all the other crabs, there will be people that don't want you to leave. There will be people that want you to stay within a certain confined box or limit or city or state. There will be people that don't want you to leave their life. There will be people that don't want you to leave their neighborhood. People that don't want you to do this or this job, but only a specific job. And they limit you because of their own thinking, is what Jemison said. And that is so true. They limit you because of their own imaginations. But let this be an inspiration to you guys to say no. I choose to use my own imaginations and what I believe I can do with what I'm being called to do, with my passions, and stretch and go make that happen. The third and last trailblazer that we will be highlighting today. Now, this one, y'all, honestly blew me away completely. The next trailblazer goes by the name of Dr.Mark Dean. Now, you guys are about to figure out who the heck this guy is and just how important he is when I tell you his impact and what he is most known for. Now, Dr. Mark Dean is most famous for, here, how about this? How about we start with growing up? As a child, Mark excelled a lot in math. Now we've seen this pattern through Banneker, as well as also Jemison. One of them being a self-taught mathematician and the other being an engineer. Engineering has a lot of math, and I can also testify to that. But Mark Dean excelled heavily in math. In fact, when he was only in elementary school, he took advanced level math courses, and in high school. This man, and that's not only it, he even built his own computer, his own radio, and his own amplifier. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know too many people that are doing and building their own computer, radio, and amplifier today, or ever. But regardless, Mark was special. And he continued his interests and went on to get a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from University of Tennessee, master's degree in EE from Florida Atlantic University, and went on to go get a PhD in EE from Stanford. In fact, now, what was Mark most known for? Now, IBM. IBM is a company that many of us have heard of, but IBM, an International Business Machines Corporation, is an American multinational technology company that's headquartered in New York and is present all over the world, over 175 countries. That's the magnitude. I want you guys to put that in scale of how big IBM is. Well, Mark started working for IBM in 1980, and he was instrumental, get this, he was instrumental in the invention of the personal computer, or PC. Not only that, but Mark, to this day, holds 3 of IBM's original 9 PC patents. Now, what is a patent? A patent is an exclusive right granted for an invention. Well, Mark holds 3 of the 9, or 1/3 of the patents, and currently, to this day, holds more than 20 total patents. In fact, he's even also credited and known for with helping develop the color PC monitor. Right? His work has had a profound impact on the computer industry, that it's made technology more accessible for people and more user-friendly. Right? Let this be an inspiration that the power of engineering and what that can do. Now, obviously, that's a little flex, me being an engineer, but regardless, the power of STEM and what it's had on past people like Banneker, like Jemison, like Mark, to do such things, to invent such things, and to be a part of that invention process that would impact the world to this day and going forward into the future. Now, I'm not sure if Mark knew that his inventions would be useful to the world to this level, but regardless, it has been. In fact, one of his most recent computer inventions had occurred when he was leading a team that produced the 1 gigahertz chip. Now that chip, that 1 gigahertz chip, contains, get it, 1 million transistors inside of it and has nearly limitless potential. Now this could be language, obviously, for many people that has no clue what a transistor is, no clue what a gigahertz is. But regardless, know that that is a key element in the computer invention that he went on to lead the team to invent, that is present in modern day PCs today. What these 3 trailblazers have inspired me to do, y'all. Now, I particularly wasn't inspired to do engineering because of these 3. But part of my inspiration came from the world that I observed when I first came to this country. When I first saw the Hammerman in downtown Seattle. When I first saw the tall buildings, the bridges, the computers. How were these things made? How were they developed? Asking questions. How does that work? What material is that? That was my inspiration. Now, if any of these people did not go along and put themselves out there and helped in the inventions or even invented the things or became a trailblazer in their own field, respective field, that could have changed history. That could have changed many of the things we had today. We may not have had the things that we have today. Maybe not for another 20 years, 30 years, we don't know. But regardless, the point is that these people stepped forward in the face of fear, in the face of adversity, in the face of trouble and adversity. They went forward and they got it done. Engineering has its own troubles. Psychology has its own troubles. Whatever field you choose to pursue has its own ups and downs. Anything worthwhile does not come easy. But at the end of the road, it will all be worth it. And that's what I've come to find with engineering. I hope this episode was an inspiration to you guys, and I hope you guys have taken away 3 of the top trailblazers, in my opinion, ever, that have shaped not only Black excellence, but also human excellence as a whole. Thank you so much for all of you who are donating to my podcast. If you're able and willing to and have found value in my podcast, consider donating monthly or consider a one-time donation. All links will be in the description down below, as well as the link to my Linktree to access all my socials. My podcast is now on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for your support and for listening, and we will catch y'all on the very next episode. Until next time, guys, peace. What is up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to that episode. Make sure to click the subscribe, follow button, as well as the bell to get notified on all my new content that is coming out every Wednesday and every other day. And make sure to click that link in the description down below to get access to all my socials and any other platforms that I have my podcast on. And until next time, y'all, peace.